Welcome everybody to the Soil Matters. We've got our normal hosts, Av and Leighton. Av, do you have volume again, or are we going to lose you? And our special guest today is Darrell Fay, an expert on the endocannabinoid system. So, Av, speak up. Can we hear you?
Yeah, can you hear me? I'm all good?
Yep.
It's a miracle at work today, Av. So I'm going to jump off. You guys take it away and have a great show.
Thanks, Ken.
Thank you.
Ab, would you like to introduce the guest, or?
I met Darrell probably 5-10 seconds ago, and it's been a great relationship since. So, Darrell, I'm going to have to turn it over to you to introduce yourself, but we're really excited. We've been building up to the point about talking about how the soil is so important in the medicine, right? Mm-hmm. Our goal, whether we're producing a tomato or a grape or cannabis flower, we're looking at it as medicine. And so we want to hear a little bit more about yourself, and then we're gonna dive right into the endocannabinoid system, and then perhaps talk about cannabis as medicine. So please.
Definitely. I started diving into the medicine side of it back in 2015 to work on problems for myself. And I started researching into the endocannabinoid system. Back in that day, I was dealing with COPD and some stomach issues. I COPD since 2008 and stuff like that. And it actually took me till about 2018 to actually figure out how to beat that. But it all happened with with learning about the endocannabinoid system and how to feed it properly, how to grow your plants properly so you can get the proper terpenes and the highest amount of terpenes, which they're very involved in the process, as well as the flavonoids. So you want the healthiest thing you can get to put into your body. I use mine every day and have since then, and don't use any cannabinoids or any pharma. Sorry, but I was in Alberta back then, and we moved to BC in the middle of 2018 over to Creston, BC here now. So we have excellent soil over here to grow with. I love outdoor growing, but through the winter I do have my indoor crop going as well. Still in soil and living soil. Yeah, just to make medicine. I don't really feed into the recreational market with my products at all. It's just looking after mostly cancer patients and MS patients these days, chronic pain patients, a lot of arthritis out there, but the cancer just seems to be going crazy these days. It's quite alarming. So just there to help and educate how the system can get you a better quality of life, not of pain and whatnot.
Yeah, great. And we're talking about everything from THCA to CBN, CBC, all the gamut. Is that?
Yeah, whatever the plant delivers. I don't extract isolates or distillates or anything like that. My process is more of a sieving, pressing process, so it delivers as much as that plant delivers as I can get. So you're getting the cannabinoids, whatever that strain carries. It's growing up with them terpenoids to protect that plant. So they've already created a symbiotic relationship in my mind. So I just pull that off and read the terpenes and the cannabinoid levels in that certain strain, and then you're able to direct it to the areas of the endocannabinoid system you can feed with it.
Do you I'm just jumping in a few questions, Leighton. If you got any, just fire them away. But I wanted to learn a little bit more about your processing of your product, and of course we'll talk a little bit more about your cultivation techniques, especially those to increase flavonoids and terpenoids. But but maybe if you could share a little bit about how you process that in flower, and I was just wondering, do you ever test your flower before making your medicine?
Yes, I actually have it's a little home testing device, MyDX. I found it to be very reliable, actually, very consistent. So I test my flower with that. It lets you know what your THC and CBD levels are, and it also gives you a nice readout of the different terpenes that you have in that. in that certain strain or cultivar. And then also I have a another tester when my products are finished. It's called the T-Check, and it can test the oils as I make it. It's actually a glycerin is what I use, is not an oil. But it tests that to make sure that my levels are consistent in the products. And the reason I use a glycerin, I find it carries, it captures the terpene profile just beautifully. The flavor is amazing. It's almost like cannabis candy, if you ask me. I don't add anything in my tinctures or stabs. It's just cannabis and the base product to make the product, like essential oils and stuff like that. I'm talking about other herbs and stuff. I find I have an excellent ratio with people that it helps. I don't need to add those, and I like for the people to see that it's just the cannabinoids themselves that's doing a lot of the work. I'm not saying you can't add that other stuff in, but I find that people say, oh, it must have been the peppermint, or it must have been the whatever, the lavender that they put in there, or whichever that's doing work, right? So that's one of the reasons I don't put anything else into it. It works amazing by itself.
So is it basically a trichome collection, or are you doing like a quick wash, or what type
basically it's a decarb process, and then it goes right into the glycerin bath, and it's heated for a certain amount of time at a certain temperature, and then and strained. I press it after just to get all the fluid out of the flower, and right into bottles and cooled.
Wow. Oh, we're talking about, when we talk about whole extract, this is a whole plant extract, right? So
yeah, everything that I can pull off of that plant, I do. I don't mess with it at all. It's already knows what it's supposed to do. It's been doing it since it grew its life, kind of thing. It's been around 28 million years, a lot more time than I've been around here. So
is it fresh or dry?
it's dried and cured. Yeah,
Right.
I do. It's in a whole process. So I actually have a patent pending process. The process of it is in patent pending state. So it's right from seed into the ground. You need the proper dry and cure process. That's what develops your terpenes and brings them alive, brings them more out into the product, and then capture that from the plant into the product.
And the comment, from Natalie Thibodeau,
Yes,
these are great. That's one of the challenges that we often have with any of these whole plant extracts. And
yes.
People are looking ways to try to cover up that taste of cannabis if they don't really care for it. But obviously, this is tasting like you smell it, and it's probably tastes.
It's actually it's very interesting because you can smell the particular strain that I make it from, and then you can taste it, and right away you can see the similarities. I find it quite awesome, to tell you the truth.
Great. Yeah.
So I got a question for you.
Yes.
So it's tinctures and salves that you make primarily?
Yes.
Okay.
I do make a topical roll. I make it with a grapeseed oil, just because it's one of the fastest absorbing oils that there is to the body, and I find that the cannabinoids actually bind with the grapeseed oil better than, let's say, an MTC oil or MCT oil, sorry, or even the olive oil. I just find it binds better. But it is almost immediate reaction especially for pain areas, stuff like that. It's almost like you roll the pain away. It absorbs that fast.
So you have salve and this roll on.
Yes.
Okay. So I guess let's go a little bit further into the tincture. What else is in the tincture other than glycerin and cannabis?
That's it.
Okay, interesting.
So I make 4 main tinctures right now. One is a high THC. I make a high CBD, a CBC salve, and also a 1-to-1 THC CBD. Them are my main 4 that I seem to work fairly well with most things I run into. depending on what their issues are, depending on their treatment plan. And my salves are actually very much the same strength as my tinctures are, just in the salve form. So some of my cancer patients, depending on their pain level, I do make double strength tincture with them, and I do add a bit of CBC in there, depending on which cancer they're dealing with. Other words, I'll just add the CBC right into the regime as a separate tincture kind of thing. MS patients, I've been finding that depending on their stage, if they're in high pain, the one lady I have, we needed to have her on high THC for, it was almost a couple of years. We got her off her opioids and got her pain level down to, she was at a 15 out of 10 pain level when I met her. Just over a month, we had her down to a 0 to a 0.5. And then we kept her there, and she started getting the anxiety effect, which told me, okay, we can back off on the THC. It's done its job. So then we backed her down to just CBD and a CBC regime, and she's been doing excellent. Just maintaining with that, so I'm quite happy.
What type of cancer did she have?
No, she has MS.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay.
Yeah. The different cancers I deal with, I've done bone cancer. I have a lady that she's in remission now. Back in October, she went to remission. So that took about 4 months, I believe. Lung cancer, I have a couple clients there. Pancreatic cancer, bone cancer, breast cancer, just many. Brain cancer. I had a couple of them clients. There's cancer everywhere. It's crazy. So in the cancer areas, there's different receptors in different areas. So I focus on the receptors that are in that area, and just feed them.
Sorry to interrupt, Darrell, but I was wondering, I think that's a great lead into perhaps maybe having you share a little bit about the endocannabinoid system, and really let's start from the basics,
Sure.
finding what it is, and then we'll get into the receptors and so on, and that'll help our audience kind of have a better idea of why this cannabis is working for what you hope it to target.
Definitely. Okay, so we all have an endocannabinoid system. All mammals do, and we're talking dogs, cats, us as people, even fish have an endocannabinoid system. But it's mainly based on, or has two receptors that really affect a lot of it. Your CB1 and your CB2 receptors. So your CB1 receptor is affected or reacted by anandamide, which is a chemical that our body produces on its own, which is very much the same as THC molecule. So the THC can react with that receptor as well as anandamide can. And then we have the CB2 receptor, and that actually requires both 2-AG, which is CBG, and the anandamide, which is THC, to actually react properly with that receptor. There's other receptors in your body. You got terpenes receptors. There's enzymes that are all involved in it, but it's all involved in a mechanism of action of the different receptors and the different cannabinoids involved. So the thing is, we haven't been able to feed this endocannabinoid system for a very long time because the government kind of made it illegal for us to grow even hemp for over 100 years now. So before that, we didn't really need to worry about it because our cows and our chickens and all that were eating hemp, and we were getting it in our foods. So we didn't really know about it. And the doctors didn't even really know about it till I think it was 1998. Raphael Schulam, he discovered it. So it's very new, and a lot of the doctors don't even know about it now, or just starting to learn about it, the ones that are interested. So we all need to feed this system. Otherwise, and most of us are endocannabinoid deficient. So that's where the cannabinoids come in. Because our bodies don't build enough or push enough endocannabinoid, or endocannabinoids is the body's form of it, and the phytocannabinoids are the plant's version of it. And our bodies we don't feed it with it's not in our foods anymore, so we're not maintaining this system anymore. And that's what's creating a lot of these diseases and ailments, that, in my belief. So when we feed this system, it just brings up your whole quality of life. It basically maintains every other system in your body, regulates it. So it's like the computer in these fancy new cars now. Actually, my wife's car was a good example here. She got it sent in for a fuel pump problem. A high pressure fuel pump is what their computer was telling them. So they fixed that, and then all that wasn't it. So they fixed the sensor that was connected to it, because that's what it was telling them. Well, maybe it's the computer that's broken, which is the endocannabinoid system. It's sending out the wrong signals and not, it's not working properly. So if we feed this system, we maintain a better quality of health. It keeps our cells healthy. It keeps the disease away, helps fight that before it even gets into the body. So that's why when a person has something going on, they need to look into the area that they have the problem. And it's usually pain. That's the signal that's sent. And dive into what symptoms they're dealing with, because that has a lot to do with it too. You almost have to deal with a lot of the symptoms to get down to the basic main problem of the issue, which I use cannabinoids for.
I think we need to stress the fact that this system, the endocannabinoid system, regulates all systems in the human body.
Everything, yes, everything.
And this is the big disconnect between pharmaceutical and naturopaths, is they don't want us to have that highly functioning system that now instead of masking, it's going to reveal the issues, which is what Darrell is trying to work toward. And exactly. I think also we should talk a little bit about CB1 and CB2 receptors, because I think one is body, one is brain. Is that correct?
Yeah, your CB1 receptor is mainly it's in your brain. It goes down your central nervous system, down into your spleen. Actually, I've got a good diagram here. You're not going to see it very well here, but it goes everywhere. This side over here, that's all your CB1 receptors. So basically, your central nervous system, your brain, down into your liver, your pancreas. Actually, it's interesting. I was reading, if you have a low CB1 receptor in males, their sperm count is a little lower, and this is where your terpenes receptor comes in. So you have a low CB1 receptor, which is low sperm count, but you also need the terpenes receptor in there for actual being able to make babies, because the terpenes receptor is responsible for moving that sperm up through the canal and connecting with the egg. Now, it is also responsible for the initiation of the suckling response of a newborn infant. They found when they cut out the cannabinoid receptor out of mice in studies that they didn't suck at all, and they actually just died. So that's how important that receptor is. And now your CB2 receptor is mainly,
Sorry, Darrell, does 2-AG and anandamide trip the TRV receptor?
2-AG, they say, does a little bit. I'm not really sure because they don't do very many studies with CBC, and that's what really deals with your vanillin receptors, is the CBC. Excuse me. So, and actually the CBC is more responsible, and I find it more important than CBD and THC, to tell you the truth, because it boosts your system into creating more anandamide and 2-AG. So I think that's very important. Right off the hop. It also goes in and it rebuilds nerve stem cells. It goes in, rebuilds brain cells, and helps neurotransmitters connect. So I believe it would be very, very beneficial in autism. I use it myself right now. I've been dealing with I deal with epilepsy. I've been dealing with it for a few years now. Actually, turn into the grand mal stage, and I use my my tinctures to regulate my epilepsy now. It's a CBC and a CBD regime is what I stay on for that. But the CBC is really, I find it very, very important. As a topical, it is amazing for acne, eczema, cuts, scrapes, and stuff like that. It heals in half the time, if not a quarter of the time. And I found it very interesting here about a month ago. A buddy of mine burnt his finger in the fire. So he was running around looking for that afterburn stuff or whichever. I said, okay, well, we'll throw THC salve on there and see what it does. So he did, and it only worked for about a couple of seconds, he said, and then the pain was back right away. And so they're running around still looking for the afterburn. I said, well, for shits and giggles, throw some CBC salve on there. It's a different cannabinoid, you know, see what it does. So he put it on there, and instantly it took the pain away. He didn't have any more pain unless he actually physically touched where he burnt. And normally you would get a blister, but it didn't blister on him. 2 days later, he peeled the skin off, and it was fully healed underneath. So I was kind of blown away by that. I didn't really know that it done that. So it was very cool.
Darrell, sorry, and you may have mentioned this earlier. I missed it. Is your CBC coming from an isolate, or is there a particular strain that you're finding higher in CBC?
Yeah, it's off a different time frame of the plant. So it's still directly off the plant. I don't isolate anything. This is my opinion. I think as soon as you isolate those, you've pulled them out of that symbiotic relationship, and when you put it back together and call it a full spectrum, I don't know if it can ever build that relationship again. And it's already built that through its life. So why would you want? I don't understand why you want to pull that apart. Just pull it out as much as you can together, and it's already working together and knows what it's supposed to do.
Yeah, and I mean, CBC is, my understanding, is a mutation, right? It's not very common to get strains high in CBC, so I know
not many people are nowhere to look for it.
Yeah, maybe that's it, because I know that GW Pharma has tried to patent CBC because that's what they want. Right?
Yeah,
it's a hard cannabinoid to find.
Well, and that's the thing, they have to synthesize it in order to patent it, because you're not actually allowed to patent actual plant CBD or THC or whichever, other than I heard the US government tried to throw a patent on it or whichever. But so that's why mine is actually patented as the process from seed to finished product. But it doesn't cover just one tincture. It covers all my tinctures and all my salves and my rolls, as long as it falls under that process, basically. So there are other things that I could make. I just don't have the resources to do that right now. That would still follow under that patent process.
So it's my understanding, like I've said, that CBC is well, it's a mutation, but it's also a process that's happening during the plant's growth. So
yes.
Are you pulling from a cultivar, or are you pulling it early to get a higher level of that?
I pulled early to get a higher level. I don't pull the buds. The CBC comes up the leaves. I mean, if you really look at the plant, everything is a mutation. The CBG goes to CBC, and then CBG, and then it turns into either THC or CBD. But at the end, in the last couple of weeks, that's what it mutates into, right? So you just learn where you need to take it off of that plant. So my CBC is, and now I haven't been able to find a tester that can actually test for CBG or CBC, because nobody's really looking at it yet. But yeah, so my CBC is it's probably a 70 80-30 or an 80-20 with CBC, CBG kind of thing. But yeah, again, I don't have an actual tester that can test for that. And I have sent my stuff into 3 or 4 different labs, and I have not got a consistent result back from none of them match. So I'm having a very hard time finding which one to believe.
Welcome to testing, my friend.
Yes, right. Yeah, and I'm tired of paying for it. I got thousands of dollars into paying these labs, and sending you back a report says, oh, you got nothing in it, or you got this is this, when there's no way it can. They told me my CBC was THC, and there's no possible way it can be. And it's so I don't know, who do you trust? I don't know. So I trust my DX tester. Like I said, NASA has involvement into this little tester, so it works quite well. Not trying to push my DX testers by any means, but it's a good little unit.
So let's all right, let's try to suss out, when you said you have about 80% CBC and 20% CBG.
Yeah.
That's like 100%. Like, don't you have other cannabinoids in that, or is it really up to the process?
Just knowing that THC and CBD mostly don't start on the plant till the last 2-week stage of that plant. The closer you get to the end of the plant, then obviously the less CBD or CBC and CBG you're going to have. And when I test it with my flower tester, it actually comes back. It tells me there's cannabinoids, but it doesn't know what they are. So it just says cannabinoids instead of a THC or a CBD. But it will show if there's THC and CBD in there, and the levels are at 0.
So that's how you figure this out.
Yeah, and then doing research. Okay, CBC should do this. It should do this. It should do this as a topical or as a tincture, and then testing on myself. I do a lot of testing on myself, and finding out, holy cow, okay, it does this, but that makes sense because as a topical, well, and as a tincture, but as a topical, rebuilding nerve stem cells. So if I put it on cuts and even old scars, it almost erases them. They almost disappear just because it's rebuilding them nerve stem cells. So I'm like, okay, that's pretty crazy, but that's doing what it's telling me it should do. So I'm just following the science, and it's doing what it's supposed to do. Then I'm happy.
Well, I think.
You go ahead.
I think that you really kind of unleashed a dragon, so to say, on the understanding of these molecules and the way that they cure out or morph into the next levels. So, I was trying to give away your secret there, but I think I kind of opened the can.
It's hard not to. Yeah, it's hard not to. It's hard not to talk about it. Like my process is still different than everybody else. You still got to pull it off that plant properly for it to work, and actually, still to have that relationship with each other to work properly, and you want all that, as many terpenes as you possibly can in that plant. So the living soil, and I'd love to spend more time talking with you, Leighton, to learn more on the living soil that you create or whichever. I've done it well enough to create very nice plants, but I've got also a lot of other stuff that I got to look after, so I don't have as much time as I would like to put into them. But I still get a very, very nice plant out of what I do. Very healthy, I got no chemicals, no bugs, no chemicals ever. This year I didn't even have any bugs. It was awesome. I was quite amazed. 2 years ago I had the stupid spider mite infestation from a plant I'd received from a friend of mine, and it introduced that into so I had to shut the whole thing down and for about 6 months wait till the winter time, and then before I got anything fired back up into the inside to get rid of that stuff. So
yeah, biosecurity. Yeah, biosecurity is a big thing, and it's Definitely. Yeah, it's not respected in the industry. But
Not
we
at
will
all.
definitely talk about living soils and the effect on the plant itself, maybe in the second half. But there's too much to suss out on this one.
Yeah, for sure.
Now, did you want to ask that question?
Yes, sorry. I was going back to maybe having you explain a little bit about, you know, when I take that tincture, how do I take that tincture? What does that tincture do in my body? And that's a little bit of what I was, what's the best way of taking that tincture, and how does it kind of come into our system?
Okay, well, my tincture, they come with an eyedropper. Just let me grab one here. This is my THC tincture. Just comes in a simple eyedropper. It's a child sealed bottle. So it's got markers on it to show how much, half, quarter, 3/4, or a full milliliter. And you would just take that under your tongue, kind of hold there for, I don't know, 10 seconds or whichever, switch it around, and then swallow. Now, it usually reacts fairly fast, and then that all depends on the issues that you're dealing with. The example I'll give, I had this stomach problem, and I dealt with it since I was 18 years old, and I just learned to deal with it. But what would happen, I wake up in the morning, and I just have a burning in my stomach, and I couldn't look at food. I couldn't even, anything. I couldn't even make a lunch for work, because it would just make me not feel well, and start dry heaving sometimes. It's just terrible. So, and that's actually why I started making these tinctures, because I read that it's supposed to help your stomach. So I made the tincture, and I started taking it, and I would take the drop, and within 5 to 10 seconds, that burning would go away. I'd be able to actually eat breakfast before I went to work. I could make my lunch and off to work. And I'm like, no way, this has got to be in my brain. I just read this, so that's why, brain is a powerful thing too, right? But day after day after day, it done the same thing. So, and now I actually don't even need to take it in the morning, and I'm hungry all the time. But I'm on tinctures all the time for my epilepsy, so it's just kind of keeping the process, keeping everything balanced, right? So, so that's how fast it can react. And it should react, to tell you the truth. If it's not made properly, it's not going to react like that. I've had clients tell me that they've been taking the CBD for 2 years, and they're not really sure if it's working or not. I'm like, you should know within a week if it's actually doing what it's supposed to do, and helping your issue, or you should be getting a hold of who you got it from and saying, hey, there's something going on here, because it should be a lot faster than. And I'm not saying there should be big reactions right away, but you should notice at least little changes for the better day by day if you're taking it properly, and if it's a properly made tincture. So basically, you would under your tongue, and depending on what issue you're dealing with, would be the different CBD or THC or whichever, depending on which receptors we're looking at, and how many times a day, based on. Usually, I base it on the actual problem, unless it's an adolescent or a child. I do have one youth. He's 4 years old. He deals with epilepsy also. So he is on roughly half of what I take, basically. He's doing very well. I met him back in August. He was having grand mals, a few a month kind of thing. And since then, up till now, as far as I know, I talked to his dad here last week, and he's had one in since then. So it's working very well in that area there also.
So I'd like to just reel it back for one quick second, and I just want the audience to understand how powerful sublingual applications of THC are. So when he said put it under the tongue and hold it there for a few seconds, that's a direct link to the entire body. That's why that is a key to understanding how to get a fast reaction. And I Darrell, I've been involved with cancer and patients, unfortunately, more than I ever want to think about. And that's one of the most really important things to explain to them, is that, when you're using these medicines, you do need to be proper. You need to be responsible
That's
about
right.
how you're using them. So I
That's
just
right.
wanted to highlight that because I think that's really important information. I'm
Oh,
sorry,
definitely, definitely.
you're gonna
No,
pop
that's
in?
fine. No, that's perfect. Yeah, that under your tongue, sublingual, right there, and rectum. For a suppository, those are the two fastest absorption areas in the body. There's not very often I'll send out a suppository. They are out there. The sublingual does just as good a job. So that's what I condone or more of.
Well, you know
You
what?
can also.
Can I just spend a second on suppositories because that was
Yep,
something
yep.
that Pauline used regularly because she could not handle the high THCs. And this wraps back into something that we really should talk about a little bit more, and that is like traditional RSO, Rick Simpson oil.
Mhm.
He was all about building up your tolerance up to 1 gram a day, and you repeat that for at least 30 days, if not 60, to really push the cancer hard. Basically, THC creates apoptosis in the cell, which means the cell explodes. So that's how you kill cancer. But for Pauline, she couldn't handle it. It was just too much. So she ended up using them suppositorily and was able to push the cancer back or beat the cancer back and was cancer free for over 2 years.
Was she getting high off the THC?
Well, we started with, tinctures, drops, tablets, all different, and again, super clean extracts. They were more of a rotary vap alcohol distillation. But bottom line was that she was, if she took a hit of a joint, she would end up having a seizure on the ground. So that's how sensitive her body was to THC. But once she switched over to suppository, she was able to build up to almost 0.6 of a gram a day and function like a human being. So, and something else that people don't understand is that if you really look into our gut, the human body's pharmacy is in the lower colon, and people don't understand that. I mean, the bacterial level in your lower colon is I don't know how many hundreds of thousands of times more concentrated than in any other part of your digestive system. So it literally is the pharmacy. So you're absolutely right when you say, hey, if you need a quick release, sublingual or suppository, and that will work.
Yeah,
so
definitely.
I'm glad you brought that up. Thank you.
Yeah, I totally agree, and I'll leave it up to the actual client if they can handle it sublingually for sure. I do have to mention that the THC tincture that I make, it actually won't get you high. I actually had my lung cancer patients, 88-year-old gentleman that he didn't smoke cannabis or anything, and that's what he was on. And there's no high from it. It's just not activated to the psychoactive level of it.
So it's the THCA then?
No, it's actually not THCA either. I've actually had that tested. It is THC. It's just not activated at the level that you need to get the psychoactiveness out of it. Now, I've argued with many doctors. Say, no, you can't do it. You can't do it. I've been doing it for almost 9 years now. You will not get high off of my tinctures. The only person I've ever seen get high, and your wife might, because I can, just by the way you're talking about her, she is very high sensitivity to THC. I've only ever seen one person that gets a little bit of a reaction out of my THC, and they were very receptive to the THC. But most people, that's one in I don't know how many hundreds. But it works very well, especially with the cancer patients. I deal with a lot of senior patients for the cancer, the MS, things like that. Yeah, and they don't want to get high.
Yeah, I wonder if you've actually stumbled on a similar process to the CBC, and that is that the THC may have other forms. Like we know about Delta 8, Delta 9. Delta 8's way more psychoreactive than Delta 9, but are just on the cusp of this understanding because it's
Exactly, and that's the whole thing, right? Because I mean, you have the Delta 8, the Delta 10. I don't agree with. They are chemicalized, changed CBD to get you high, to get around the regulation and stuff like that. So for actual THC, you have the THCA, and then you have the Delta 9, they're calling it, which is THC, and then you have the Delta hydroxy 11. Now that's actually the heated part of THC that you get the psychoactiveness from it. The Delta 9 THC, I believe, now they already labeled this, that should be the THC that I'm delivering. It's not actually psychoactive, but they've already marked it as that, because there are different stages of where to activate it. And same with your terpenes, they also need to be activated. They're all well in their acid form, just like the your cannabinoids. They all have their they all do a job then, but they also, once you activate them and activate them together, they just, the terpenes and the cannabinoids boost each other's to do their jobs better, basically.
And that goes back to the entourage effect, which I
Mhm.
truly is the key to everything. You know, I get these people that go, oh, you know, my THC level is 28. And I'm like, yeah, but I've smoked some THC 15 with with all the minor cannabinoids,
Oh, yeah.
way better than that
Yeah.
high THC couch lock shit.
Yeah, I agree. And it all depends on terpenes that you're putting into that. The coach lock, you're smoking a high myrcene, probably there's probably beta caryophyllene, there's probably linalool in that strain. Where you want the energetic side of your cannabinoids, you're looking for the more the terpenine and a lot of limonene and the pinene, stuff like that, and that's going to give you energy, going to give you focus. So you really got to look into the terpenes and what you're looking for in that time of the day. If you don't want to smoke the high myrcene one in the middle of the day, you're definitely going to be in the couch. That's what it's for. So yeah, you really need to look into the terpenes also. They have a lot of effect. Nobody's really expressing them at all. You're right. They're saying, "Oh, I smoke the 31% THC." Well, if you do, that's actually a steroided plant. I've grown a lot of organic plants. I don't think I've seen many over 24, 26. But they're actually able to still carry that beautiful terpene content with them, as opposed to the hydroponic. You're getting up to the 30, but there's barely any terpenes with it. That they burnt them all off or whichever with the salts or the chemicals or whatever they use. So that's what I'm looking for and actually I like personally anywhere between a 16 and 19% somewhere in there THC with geez, give me 15 different terpenes in that unit, and it's just beautiful. And I've grown strains that have 12 to 15 different terpenes. They're not all at a super high level, but they're all in there, right? They must be in there for a reason. That plant put them there for a reason. So I just let nature do its thing. It knows what it's doing.
Yeah, and it's funny that you mentioned about living soils and the expressions, but every time I've been blessed because I've been in this industry, so I get to smoke like all clean shit, and the expressions from smoke offs where you had someone grow it hydroponically versus someone growing it in a complete living soil, it's fucking night. It's absolutely nice.
Yeah. Yeah, I was in Unicorn Cup for over in Salmo with Shay LeBlanc. He runs the Unicorn Cup. He's got it coming up against us here. So the first year they run that, and we got this great big kit full of all these samples that we had to smoke. And half of them, I one puff and I couldn't smoke. It just burnt the throat, burnt the top of the mouth, there's no flavor, and it's just, no, that one's not getting into anywhere near the cup or whichever. And even some of the oils and some of the hashes that come through, it was just I'm not really sure what they were doing to them or what, but there's definitely a difference. Very few organic people come through there. There were a few, which you could tell right away. It's just, yeah, you're right, night and day. Even myself, I'm fairly blessed now. I don't have to go to the cannabis shop or or go see my friends or anything. Everything, like I say, I make medicine with mine, so it's as clean as I can possibly make it. So it's beautiful. And the flavors, it's been a few years since I've been growing, so as well as I do, you've probably got a nice bank of seeds going on. So you get a few different varieties to keep yourself happy for sure. But also, I'm actually trying to get some seeds from. I got links over in the UK and stuff like that. I'd like to get some seeds from them guys over there. They probably have different strains that we haven't seen over here. It would be nice to introduce and see what kind of different terpenes we can get from those. But I'm also wondering, because I don't know if we will be able to get a lot of different terpenes, because I'm using the same climate to grow in, as opposed to actually getting flower that's grown over there, because their climates and everything are different over there, which would deliver different terpenes in that area. So I think it's going to be really interesting once we get these connections opened and be able to get that trade in, so we can get a full flux of the different terpenes available in the world, because there's different terpenes everywhere. And be able to have that availableness to them would just open up so many doors.
So, Ab, did you want to add anything? There you go.
Hey, I'm gonna jump back. Darrell, you mentioned something I thought was kind of interesting, and it may have a lot to do with the particular patient you were working with. But typically, my understanding is that the younger you are, ideally or typically, you will have a better endocannabinoid tone, and therefore you often need a little bit more THC or cannabinoid to actually trigger your system. And as we get older, our endocannabinoid system loses its tone, its definition, and that's why we can typically take lower doses and get intoxicated or have the therapeutic or medicinal benefit. And I first I should have started out by saying I'm so happy to hear that you feel it's important for youth to also be using cannabis, right?
Oh, so definitely, yeah.
Stigmatize that cannabis is all about intoxication, that they don't even feel comfortable presenting CBD, CBG, CBC, CBN to youth. And arguably, I mean, I'm still a fan of providing a little bit of THC to youth as well. So, but I was wondering if you want to comment on your decision to give half a rate to a child versus a full rate.
Just because he's a toddler, most of the ratios that I see on dosaging are based on a kilogram per milligram dosage kind of thing. Yeah, and that was really what it was based on. And I can always add. I'd rather add than give too much to begin with. You're gonna, if you do give too much, and personally in this situation, I don't think I would have, because his CB receptors are very overreactive. So as soon as that medication gets in there, it's gonna be used, because they're calling for that reaction to come on for the medicine, or for the cannabinoids basically. But yeah, just to start off a little slower, they say go low and slow to begin with. If you were an adult just like me, I would basically put you on the same regime. It wouldn't really matter, unless you're like 80 pounds or something like that. But most adults you don't see like that. Yeah, and it seems to work fairly well. I think a proactive thing to be doing, because our kids actually, their endocannabinoid system right now would be less than ours were when we were born, just because we're not naturally feeding that, so it's already deprived, and that's why I believe we have this autism problem coming up. They say by 2050, 1 in 2 are going to be diagnosed autistic. Well, that's a neurotransmitter connectivity problem, and that tells me that's what CBC does. So that tells me right there we should be proactive on this. Start getting CBC back into the diet of these children and everybody for that matter, but especially the children, even breastfeeding mothers and stuff like that, to initiate that suckling response right off the hop, and get our society healthy and back to a proactive situation.
And the other comment I just wanted to make, it's interesting because I think there's still a little inconclusive research around vaginal suppositories. What I've picked up from, I think, some of Bonnie Goldstein's work is that she mentioned how, and I'm giving Bonnie credit for it, she may not have done that work, but just mentioning how it's not that cannabinoid won't necessarily impact your good microflora in the vagina, but maybe the terpenes can do that. So you can really disrupt your microbiome in your vagina. So you have to be somewhat careful for that. But I don't think that you have the same issue if you're doing anal or rectal suppository. So
no, I don't think so. I've only actually had one client that I've recommended for the vaginal suppository, and she was an endometriosis client. And actually, she found it, and I just recommended her put the THC salve and the CBC salve, both of them, because for the nerve tissue damage that might be going on down there, onto a suppository of her choice, basically. And I guess she went to work. She was in pain and went home from work. She left work early, and I guess she'd done what I recommended. And 20 minutes later, she felt so good, she felt bad, she went back to work, I guess. So I was quite surprised that that's the first time I had ever suggested something like that. So I was quite happy with the outcome of it. But I'm not, that's the only client I've ever, like I say, suggested that to. So that's my only testimony on that. Is I haven't really researched it all that much.
Again, you guys were so far, cutting edge.
Yeah.
It's not even. We are the pioneers breaking the ground.
Yes.
I want to jump in because I want to talk about the testing that you're doing as well. You have a testing regiment where people. So I think that's something that is going to be next level as well. If you want to talk about that.
Okay. Yeah. So I've linked up with a company called Dynamic DNA. Sorry, I'm just getting I'll bring this up. You can probably not see it. It's called Dynamic DNA. It's a cannabis DNA test kit. So basically, it's a simple cheek swab. You mail it back into the lab company, and they will email you as well as myself a readout of how your endocannabinoid system, based on your genomes, is going to react and metabolize CBD and THC. So it'll give us basically how it should react with your pain management, sleep, side effects, stress and anxiety, and your metabolism, basically. If you're a low metabolizer or a high metabolizer, CBD or THC. So then it'll take that information. It'll also give you a recommendation of strains for ratios that would be beneficial to your body. And I also take that and read that, see how your body metabolizes the endocannabinoid system, or your CB1 CB2 receptors, and put it towards the ailments that you're actually dealing with. So it changes quite a bit. So I've seen a person have a high metabolism of the CBD, and their THC metabolism is low, and they have a high pain and a lot of pain, which totally makes sense to me, because your anandamide deals with your pain receptors, your CB1 receptors. Your 93% of your pain receptors are CB1 receptors. So the CBD is pushing down on the thaw, which is not allowing as much anandamide into the body, which is going to put you in a pain situation. And his CBD metabolized very, very quickly, so it's kind of overtaken. So a lot of people will feed, okay, we got to keep up with that metabolism on the CBD, which we don't want to do. We want to buffer that down so that'll allow more anandamide into the body and take you out of that pain area. And in order to do that, you need to be able to suppress the magle, which is where CBC comes in. It suppresses down onto the magle, regulates the CBD, and it also boosts up your THC side. So it helps in reading your body and be able to put the mechanisms of action to what you're dealing with, basically.
Is that company out of Canada, Darrell?
No, they are out of Florida, actually.
Because
there was another company. There was one called EndoDNA in California, yeah, and I didn't mind them. I talked with him, and theirs only based on the FAW receptor, the FAW enzymes, and you can't really do that because there's so much more in the mechanism of action. And another reason I didn't choose to work with those guys is they have a whole bunch of their own products, 300 of their own products. So they're going to push you towards their products and not the right products. You know what I mean? They don't really care just buy their products, basically. So this dynamic DNA, they're just a lab. They don't have products they sell. They just do the testing. That's all they're focused on. I just actually got to talk to the science guys that built this test, and I'm actually going to try working together with them to build a kind of a real-time test, because I'm reading a lot in these studies, and at the time of an issue going on in somebody, they can tell that there's an overabundance of certain receptors in that area. So I'd like to build a test so we can test, okay, you've got an overabundance of CB1 receptors. Then a month later, after you're taking the cannabis treatment, we can test again and say, okay, that's coming down or that's going up. We got to change something, and go from there. More of a real-time thing. This test, the first test is a nice, good base of where we're starting off with and what we need to do.
Wow, this is great work, Brad. Great work. And I noticed that too. Pauline started working with that company out here in California after her diagnosis, and they were still just a lab at that point. But then they started pushing. They started getting a little funky, and then they started pushing products, and we left them behind because by then we were so deep into it that we knew what we needed to do instead of worrying about testing. So, yeah. But I'm glad that you're bringing this to the populace, or to at least this audience, that there are ways. Definitely. Testing, which gives you an advantage. I mean, you hear me preaching about testing all the time. So
definitely, yeah, it gives us all the advantage if we just use it, right? So, and to know for sure that that's what we're starting with, that takes my guessing out of, okay, how's his body gonna react to these tinctures that I'm gonna give him? Because, like I say, I've had one out of hundreds, but there was one, that reacted, that actually got a little bit of psychoactiveness from the THC. Which totally blew my mind. So then she told me, oh yeah, I'm really, really reactive to THC. So, and I never tested the lady, but I bet I can almost tell you what her test would come back as just by knowing what I know. So that just takes that guesswork out. Then I don't have to worry about scaring that client away with any bad reactions, and it gives them a lot more confidence in what we're teaching them, and they can read it for themselves, based directly off of their genomes. So yeah, I think it's a great base start for sure.
So when you produce these tinctures, do you have any idea like how strong they actually are? Like what is the? Yeah. Can you talk a little?
So I've got the. So obviously I test the flower. and go with that. So it's on a ratio basis of the base glycerin to the amount of flour, basically. And my normal strength is 1,000 milligrams per bottle is what I make it. So everything's made 1,000 milligrams. If I need to make it different from there, then that would be a custom batch that I would make for somebody. I do make a double cannabis or a THC tincture with CBC added in. So it works up to about 2,500 milligrams per bottle. There'd be 2,000 milligrams of THC and 500 of the CBC, just because they really the CBC and the THC work really well together. But those are mainly severe cancer patients with high amounts of pain. Is usually who those tinctures go to. Yeah, other than that, that's pretty much my base ones is 1,000 milligrams per bottle, 30 milligrams in a bottle, or milliliters in a bottle.
Yeah, that was always our go-to, was 1,000 milligrams. Just seemed to have the right amount of balance to it. It wasn't too much, but it was definitely effective. So
exactly.
That's why.
Yeah, that's my base rate, and my salves are basically the same strength. They're a little bigger jar. I think there's 45 milliliters in a jar of salve, as opposed to 30 milliliters in a bottle. Kind of thing.
What type of long chain fatty acids are you using in your salves?
I just use coconut oil. I use almond oil and just a very small amount of beeswax. Get from a local farmer out here. That's it. And cannabis.
And does the beeswax help it to gelatinize?
Yeah, just solidify it a little more. Yep. Yeah. Otherwise, just the coconut oil and the almond oil, it'd be mostly liquid all the time unless you kept it in the fridge all the time. I suppose, right? Yeah.
I think it's important at some point that you plug yourself too, because what the work you're doing is so important. Where can people find you?
They can find me on Facebook and LinkedIn right now. I'm working diligently. I've been talking with tons of people, and it seems like it's pulling teeth trying to get out and get this out there. I'm not really sure why or what, but I am definitely trying.
Well, you're going against the medical industry, which is run by the medical industry, trying to control the world at this point. So, of course, you're going to have fucking brick wall after brick wall. But do you have a place, like a name of your Facebook page where we can put up?
You can go to Darrell Fay on Facebook, or just Cannabis Tincture, like you see on the screen there right now. You can go to Darrell Fay on LinkedIn. And I do have a website. We're just putting the final touches on it, and I'm really hoping it'll be up. I'm hoping the end of this week, but maybe the beginning of next week. But it will be up. I've been kind of leery to put a website up because I'm still on the light side, I guess, if you want to call it that. So, but I've been asked about it too many times, so I've got to get it. It's going to be called zerohide.ca.
Nice. Well, take note, audience.
Very exciting.
Do you want to polish up anything else before we go into better understanding of?
Okay. Well, since Darrell brought it up, I know that he knows this stuff, so I can ask this question. I feel okay. Oftentimes we talk about when you're greening out, which some of us have managed to do when they jump into a smoking circle, and they shouldn't, right? And or they eat something that they shouldn't, or eat a few of them. And I'm speaking only of myself. So we often say that you can try to come off your greening out by eating your pine nuts and your oranges and whatever. We talk about perhaps you could take some CBD with that.
Yep.
Okay, so now CBD inhibits the degradation or inhibits FA, right?
Yeah.
So now your THC is actually going to stay on the receptor longer. So how does
it should pull it off. So
You know what? Maybe I could throw something.
It's hard to explain. Yeah.
Please
So
do.
so from what I understand is that as you're getting higher and you get to a certain point where you're uncomfortable, if you did take CBD at that point, what it would do was plug up the THC binding sites. So therefore, the THC would still be in your body, but it just wouldn't be metabolizing anymore or at the same level that it metabolizing.
So you got to understand that our endocannabinoid system is real time. So as soon as you put that THC or you got that over high, it's feeding off of that. But as soon as you put that CBD in there, it's going to get that it's going to neutralize that THC, I guess you suppose. Take off the highness of it or whichever within the receptor, because now they're both going to be involved in the receptor.
Well, from what I understand, it's actually plugging the receptor.
And it could be plugging. Yes, yeah,
Right.
exactly.
So
Yeah.
now,
And just to throw this in, my understanding is that CBD does not bind to either CB1 or CB2
Nope.
receptors. It's an
Nope.
agonist and an antagonist.
Yeah.
And therefore it would maybe manipulate the THC molecule so that it doesn't bind as well. But
Yeah, and that, yeah.
of the fatty acid amide hydrolysase, does that not? That's what's to take THC off the receptor.
Yeah, it should slow the metabolism of the THC down, or the anandamide. Yeah.
But doesn't CBD slow down FA?
Yes.
Or inhibit
And
FA?
FA metabolizes THC, so that'll slow down the metabolism of the THC and add the CBD in.
clearly, a lot more work needs to be done.
Yeah, there's totally right. Yeah, there's a whole the big old mechanism of action is going on in there, and it's right. I was going to actually give Ken some pictures to post on or whichever of the mechanism but it is so in depth and wow, we could talk about one picture for hours. Just going, oh, Case, look what it does here. Look what it does here. What it does here, right? And it's all the mechanism of action and how it reacts to each enzyme and the calciums, the everything. Yeah, it's crazy.
You would still recommend CBD if you're greening out. Take some CBD.
Definitely, I've used it myself. I've actually given it to clients. They smoke too much or whichever. I say, okay, go take a drop on my CBD, and with 10 minutes, they're good. They're back to normal. When I greened out myself without anything like that I was between my knees for an hour or two, kind of thing, trying not to, the room spinning. We've all been there, right? Yeah. So it cut that out within 10 minutes, and he was good. So that's the only reason I say that. But then again, I say you need to have well-made products for them to work properly.
Or that, or hit the refrigerator and just start.
That too, yeah. That could probably do too. Yeah.
But I think that this whole CBD, THC, all of these interactions is similar to what we call biogeochemical reactions, which we can't explain at this point.
Exactly.
So definitely more research needs to be done. And to be honest with you, I did have the beautiful opportunity to work with Dr. Ethan Russo with Pauline.
Oh, cool.
Back a number of years ago. And what I'm understanding now is we're so far ahead of where we were back just 4 or 5 years ago that it's not funny.
Yeah. Trying to keep up with the studies is crazy.
Right. And that's often why I say when I'm talking deep about biology, I'm like, look, I may be proven wrong tomorrow. I'm just giving you information that I've received in these proper, responsible channels. But
exactly,
like that whole friggin' carbon sequestering of the cell, they just basically tore that whole textbook up because it doesn't metabolize the carbon the same way it does in the soil system that they did the test on. Every soil system has a different metabolism, or the soil has a different metabolism based on its environment. So, yeah, this is, We're so far. We know nothing. We know fucking nothing.
I agree. I'm right there with you, Leighton, for sure. Yeah. Yeah, I just try to educate and help people, and that's all I can do. To keep up on the studies, make sure what I make is as true as I can make it. I let the nature grow the plant. It knows what it's doing. I don't need to tell it what to do. Just feed it properly. Actually, I don't. I just give it RO water. Especially on the land out here in BC is beautiful. You just put the seed in the ground and it just grows beautiful. Just give it water. It's good. Yeah.
Nice, love it. I don't know. Did you want to touch any more on what we've got?
No, I love Darrell's philosophy. Right? It's just the 29 million years of working together, they've got it figured out, right? Mm-hmm. So, yeah, we're just hopefully accepting that, and that's the beauty of the whole plant extract. We're not even pretending to know what it is that's going to help out the MS versus the chronic pain versus the cancer. Mm-hmm. It's just something in there that's working, and maybe it's many things in there that working together. So
exactly.
Yeah.
Well, and the thing is, most of these studies that you're finding right now, they're all done just based on CBD, just because it's still illegal to research with THC down in the States and in most of these countries out there. So they've only done the studies with CBD. So we have no idea what whole plant medicines can do even yet. They haven't even studied it yet. So we're just taking, okay, what did they find from CBD, or what did they find from just CBG, and they keep studying the same thing over and over and over again. It's driving me nuts. Can you don't jump into a different area today, or I see the same studies over and over. Yeah, it's just ridiculous.
I did want to jump in a little bit around your cultivation. You're growing indoors as well as outdoor?
Yeah.
And do you grow the same cultivar indoor and outdoor?
I've got about 30 or 40 different ones. I have a few of them that I stick with quite regularly, which is a white rhino, sour kush. Usually I have an OG in there of some kind, and then I'll put in a strawberry cheesecake just for fun, or just get some different terpenes maybe. And
what do you notice in the difference between something that you're growing outdoors versus what you grow indoors? That same cultivar, indoor and outdoor. What do you notice the difference?
More the density of the bud, really. As for percentages, I've had some very high percentage THC bud, up over 23, 24%. And same with my indoor. It's more just the density of the buds.
Do they taste the same? Pretty much look the same?
Yeah, as far as I'm concerned, yeah. I don't know. I get full flavor out of most everything I grow, so I'm pretty happy with all of it. But I contribute that to the organic nature. I just let it grow, and it just does what it's supposed to do. I don't know.
I'm going to throw this out to Leighton and see if he has any comments. Leighton, do you feel like natural sunlight is going to produce different terpenes because there are things in the light spectrum that are going to trigger the plant to release different exudates and attract different microbes to create different? What's your thought between that?
I knew you were going to do that. You're an awesome co-host, my friend. So I personally believe that the higher intensity UV, and this was where I was going to go before Av asked me this, was, Darrell, do you have supplemental lighting in your greenhouse? What kind of coating do you have? Are you double wall plastic? Are you the Pyrex, Polyex, or any of those rigid type of, or are you glass? So all of these things will help play into it. So what is your greenhouse construction?
It doesn't even have a greenhouse. It's just outdoor. There's no greenhouse or anything. And my indoor is in I have an 8x8 tent, a 5x10 black, with the basically tin foil on the inside, or with a mylar, or whatever you want to call it. Yeah, but outdoor, it's just in the ground, just right outside. There's no greenhouse,
All right,
there's no
and then
anything.
the lighting in your tent?
Oh, LED.
All
Yeah,
LED.
nothing special. They're just LED. I got ordered off the internet. They could think they come from China. They grow well.
Do they have the white spectrum in them as well, or is it purple?
Yeah. They have the purple, the red, and the white spectrum. Yep.
Okay, so it's pretty much a full spectrum as far as you
Full
can.
spectrum. Yep. Yeah.
Does it provide settings or adjustments?
Yeah. Actually, it comes with a little computer board. You can set your wattage on it for different times of growing or whatever. You can your times on it. If it overheats, it'll shut down for you. Yeah, you can. I think you can link up to 100 different lights to the one control panel, and it's
Okay.
actually split into two. So you could have two banks running differently, of 50 in each bank if you wanted to on this particular one.
And does it have a morning and afternoon setting?
No, it doesn't have that yet. No. I think it was too early in the LED building business for them to actually put the wake up in the morning and then shut down at night kind of thing. The evening spectrums and stuff like that.
Okay, so
Yeah,
now
it's not really anything too fancy.
Yep. Well, no, this is all really important information to suss out, because what's interesting is that you're saying that there's very little difference, or that's even noticeable, other than density of the bud of the flower.
Yeah, for me, I get tremendous flavor out of both the indoor and the outdoor on the same cultivars, and it's the density that I find is my difference.
So that goes back to answering Av's question as best as I can, is that yes, the outdoor light has been shown to provide levels of spectrums that we cannot yet replicate indoors. And again, this is from knowledge that I received from Wolf Siegel, who is very much a lighting nut job. I don't know if you've heard of him. And Av or Ken, put him on the list to remind me. Wolf Siegel, all right?
That's a deep dive. He does a deep dive into light. Wow.
So yeah, and I've been blessed to have the opportunity to spend hours on the phone with him, really going out on a limb and talking theory, which a lot of people don't like to do because there's so much.
I guess the other thing I did notice is the size of the plant. But I mean, I'm indoors, so I do a lot of pruning just to hold the plant back so I can grow a wider plant instead of a taller plant. The outside, I do still do a bit of pruning, but the size and the length of the koalas are definitely noticeable for sure. I mean, you're probably twice or three times the size of plant outdoor than indoor. But then our growing season is 6 or 7 months instead of 4 or 5 like I have on the indoors, right?
So have you ever tested side by side those cultivars with your little unit to see if
not side by side. No, it's not side by side, but it is run off of your phone, so it does save the test results from previous tests or whichever, so you can go back and compare. And I haven't really compared all that much. Most of the time when I test them, just looking for what's in the plant, and I've noticed that you can only go back so far, and then it kicks you back up to the front again. So it probably only holds on to so many tests. So, but you could easily do that for sure.
Yeah, I think that's worthy of a side by side when you have time. Because
definitely.
You are answering questions that we still don't really have, as much data sets as we'd like to see on these types of questions. Believe me, they've been circulating for quite some time. Like, is outdoor,
I agree.
Is indoor better than outdoor? And so, the more information you and we can release to the public, the better off, the more intelligent decisions they can make. But to be honest with you,
I would have to say back in the day, this was back in my RSO making days or whichever you want to call it, I actually make butane back in the day I did. I don't actually do it anymore. The most I've ever got off of one plant was 7 grams out of the ounce, which was quite high. Most on average, it's between 4.5 to 5 grams on most stuff, and it come from an outdoor plant. So I was quite excited about that.
Well, good knowledge, my friend. Good knowledge, and yeah, I think, I'm a proponent that biomimicry is the key to everything.
Mhm.
And if we can biomimic indoor, awesome. If you can't, you just do the best you can. But natural sun, natural soil, rain, I think are the keys to the kingdom in medicine production.
Yeah, I agree. Yep, definitely.
Did you want to follow up on that?
No, I think that's just so. I think it is so powerful, and we're looking forward to having Leighton come out to Edmonton and give a talk on the Horizon bed systems, just because we really do need that biomimicry of those natural soil, seeing what that really happens, and so especially because if we are truly trying to do a regenerative cannabis. It's harder to do in as Leighton says, these low tensile, low tension soils. Yeah.
So is that the name we've agreed that is non derogatory?
I think that's a good way of describing it. Low tension soils is a nice way of because otherwise Leighton refers to them as soilless mixes, and I'm trying to talk about living soil, and well, arguably they're living
Matrix.
low tension soils.
I think I like it. It's neutral. It's neutral.
Yeah.
So let's
I agree.
Darrell, let's dive into your growing methodologies or standard operating procedures.
Basically, I grow by seed. I start in the with paper towel in between a couple of plates. Kind of I like setting mine above the fridge. It's got some nice heat up there, and I've been really lucky with my seeds. If they're not popped in 2 days, there's something wrong with most of them. They're quite awesome. So then they go right into just a living soil dirt that I buy it in town, and it's also made. It used to be Gaia. I used to deal with Gaia dirt, but there's something happened between him and his son branched off, and he's got a company called Frankia, and it's a living soil dirt that you can buy by the mix. So I start them off on that. They're in there for 2 to 3 weeks. I try to prune them back already in that stage, so they'll give me a nice bush. Then I go into the number 1 pots with the living soil mix. I mix up the Frankia's dirt. I had some worm castings in there, a few amendments into it, perlite, stuff like that. Mix it up. Basically, and that's all it gets. Put a nice topping on it. And I just use actually rabbit sawdust for that, or the rabbit you get at the pet store. So it's not non-bleached wood chips, basically. I've been using that. Seems to work fairly well for me. So then they're in the number 1s for. Depends what size I want to grow them till. Most of them they'll only be in there 3 weeks to a month, and then I put them into a number 2 pot to finish out for. And again, depending on the strain, some of them are done as early as 6.5 weeks to 8.5, 9 weeks, kind of thing. They'll get in their flowering stage. They'll get 1 microbial tea, and that'll be usually around week 2 or 3, kind of thing. But that's about it. Other than that, just RO water. I go in, do some pruning. I'm a guitar player also, so I go in and sing them tunes every couple of days, kind of thing, try and keep them happy. But that's about it. When I cut down, I like to do a wet trim. Not much of a I find it a lot easier. But same as the gentleman that they were speaking with this morning, I don't do the whole plant. It's by the branch, and hang dry, and then a nice dry and cure process till it's the flavor and what the percentage or to the finish I want to see kind of thing. Test it and put it towards medicine or wherever it needs to go from there. Yeah.
So would you consider you're making a super soil? So you're like building in all of the other ingredients that plant needs. So you're basically mineral amended a low tension soil.
Yeah, basically, yeah. Just added to it so it'll fetch through the whole veg state, and I don't normally have to give it anything but RO water.
And so basically, then you top dress with worm castings, which is a wonderful food source, and then you said you did something else. Oh, microbial teas. So what is your microbial tea? What can you explain a little bit more about what that consists of?
Yeah, which okay, so and you were speaking about it on a show here a few days ago with your microbial tea. I get everything really bone meal, molasses, blood meal. There's some depending on the stages. What else the heck are they? There's some calcium in one of them. There's worm casings also in some. Bubble it for 24 hours. Get the microbes nice and active in there, and then and feed the plants with it just to rejuvenate the microbes in the soil. Basically, yeah.
So it sounds like it's almost not only just a biological liquid inoculant, but it's also a nutrient liquid inoculant because you are adding minerals and other things. So that was what
a little bit of everything, yeah.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to suss out of you is what is your nutritional regiment look like? And basically that's what it is. It's your How often do you do those microbial teas? Just once?
Just once, yeah. I don't I was when I first started this is the True Living Organics. This is the method I follow or whichever. It's by the Rev. You got heard of him or not.
Yeah.
And I basically just follow it pretty much to the T. He's got the T formulas in there. And I was giving them teas and veg, but I didn't find it really done all that extra much. I find if you build a proper soil to begin with, and you know how many days that you want that in that particular pot, you can build it for that pretty much kind of thing. And then you get into your next pot. And really the only reason I give it a tea in the budding stages is to kick off a little more of that phosphorus in there, just to kick it in the bud a little better, right? And then it seems to do pretty good. And then at the end, I don't really put it on a timer. I just start watching the trichomes and the hairs at the end. I don't even watch with a magnifying glass, just because there's just a look of the bud that you're looking for, and there's about a 3-day window that you've got into that finished bud, and each plant will be just a little bit different, but there's just a certain look, a certain shine on them that I look for. I don't know what you call it, but anybody that's growing for a long time, they know what they're looking for to finish off. You know what I mean?
Well, I think when you're talking,
I want to break in. Are you using the spikes that the Rev recommends when you're setting up your soils as well? Because that's okay. You might want to explain what a spike is to Leighton, because that's part of it as well.
Okay, yeah, and my budding, my third pots, so the end pots, there are 2 vegging spikes, which will be a mixture of more nitrogen side for the veg spikes, and then there'll be 2 budding spikes, they call them, and there'll be more potassium in that for the budding stage. So the roots aren't going to get them right away. They're going to have to go out and search for them. But when they get there, then they're going to have that for later on in through the plant growth of the life of the plant growth story. And that's just to help them maintain in that pot. So you don't need such a big pot for their whole entire lifetime, basically. So they'll have nutrients out there when they get there. You leave them because you put them out towards the outside of the pot.
So are you buying the spikes or are you making them?
Okay,
No, I
Leighton,
make
here,
them.
let me explain it. Basically, the
Yeah, you might know a better way.
formulations, and you mix the formulations up. You put your plant in, and then you put spikes around that the biology has a chance to break down before the roots get there, so that it doesn't burn your root tips. So the biology's broken it down, and when the roots get there, it's all available right through the plant. So it's just a pre-way. And the Rev recommends always with your soils to compost them for 30 days with a mixture of amendments. So it's actually a composted soil. So it's more of a organic living soil because the biology is already added in.
So it's very similar to a super soil cook-off. So traditionally in cannabis, they would get a kiddie swimming pool, mix their low tension soil. I'm learning how, and then they would add the amendments, flip it, turn it for about 2 weeks until it cooled down, and then they would go ahead and use it. So it sounds very similar to that methodology. And yeah, you know, it's funny, Ken, is that Chip Osborne and I had talked years ago about layering in nutrients at lower levels of the pot, as well as around the outer edge, just so that exactly what he was talking about would happen. So, you know, it makes a tremendous amount of sense. Good system, good system. Sure.
Yeah, well, that's what I grew in.
Yeah,
is exactly what
doing.
So, and it worked fantastic.
Yeah, it works great. Yeah,
well, you've prevented
it's cheap, very low cost.
Yeah, and you've prevented potential burn. You've given the biology time to metabolize it, which means the nutrient is not mobile in the soil as you water it. So yeah, it makes a lot of sense. I think that's a great methodology for that style. All right. So we're gonna have to jump to questions. We only have 6, but before we do that, Darrell, is there something that you wanted to ask of me about soils that I could help you with or give you some insights?
Oh, I think that's a conversation we'll have to get on. You are definitely further advanced into the soil than I am, for sure. Yeah, there's lots of questions. I just have a hard time just because I have so many processes that I deal with. I got to find the time to actually make to dive into the soil area, but just because I'm growing and then you're harvesting at the same time, curing and drying, but you're also making medicine at the same time, and then you're also consulting with clients at the same time, and trying to keep it all going in a nice little circle. But I mean, yeah, I like to sit over an hour or two and definitely have a chat with you for sure.
All right, well, we'll save that for another time then. Ab, is there any other points that you'd like to hit on?
I was just going to jump in. You talked about the processing. Did you ever try doing any non-decarboxylated medicines?
No, I haven't. No, I've heard a lot of good things about the THCA and the CBD, and it's not like I can't. It would easily work out in the process, in the process that I do. I just haven't had a lot of call for it. Not saying it can't be done. And now the research, they're actually doing a lot more research on it. So the studies are coming out, and they're saying, CBD is a lot better as an acid form in certain areas than actual activated CBD is, and until we'll have to see, I guess, right? So
that's it.
You know, it's funny you should ask that question, because that was when Pauline and I first got to meet Dr. Ethan Russo. We sat down at this restaurant to have some coffee, and he said, "Well, tell me what you're putting in your medicines." And so Pauline said, "Well, we're using a CBD crude, which means that there's still THC in it. It is kind of a full plant spectrum medicine because you haven't like completely cooked it off. The terps aren't as popular or as abundant in that rotary vap type of system. And then she said we use THCA crystals, which is basically diamonds.
There we go.
Yeah, you popped off there for a minute. So I was telling Av that the other part was she was using THCA crystals, which are basically diamonds.
Mm-hmm.
And we were using, a high THC concentrate. So that again would have been typically a rotary alcohol evaporation process. Mm-hmm. And then some CBD distillate. So that's where the THC has been removed. And again, the reason why was with these 4, and I think there was one other ingredient. With these 4 or 5 ingredients, you can tailor things to your patients.
Exactly.
Which is important. So if they are THC intolerant, she would go heavy on the THCA.
Yeah.
And Ethan was the first person I've ever heard said, "Oh my God, that's where you need to focus on. That's the key to the whole thing." Because everybody else is like, "Oh no, you got to decarb it first because otherwise you're not going to get the value out of it."
Yeah,
so
and there's value there.
Yeah, no, I think that really is something that again needs to be explored in depth when the regulatory allows it. But that acid form on all of these cannabinoids,
I agree,
tends to have a certain effect or value to it.
Definitely.
How are the THCA crystals consumed?
Typically, they mix it with a sauce, a terp sauce, and then cook it like you would have.
So you're dabbing them. So you weren't consuming them in the acid form. You were consuming them in a decarboxylated form.
No. She was using these in medicine. So she would mix all of these medicines together and put them in caplets.
Oh, in caplets. Oh, okay.
Gotcha.
I thought you said you were dabbing.
So that's to get down into the liver and bust breakdown down in the liver. Yep. Which actually gives you a different stimulation than the sublingual does, which people need to pay attention to that also. If you eat something like a brownie, anything, a gummy, anything like that, it is going to be totally different than sublingual medicine. They don't react the same. Your brownie, you're going to get high from it. You're going to get that body stone from it. I don't recommend many edibles for any of my clients or anything. It's just it's for sleeping maybe, but not usually. I'll recommend my CBC. It's very well for sleep. It's a natural sedative itself. So they're hard to dose.
Yeah, and so I hope I answered your question, Ab, because it was capsule form for digest or suppository, and she did both.
That's great. Yeah, that's a great way of consuming THCA, especially if you don't want to just eat raw flour type thing. So
right.
Yeah. No, that's super.
And something else that we haven't talked about, but we're going to have to do a session on in the future is juicing cannabis.
Yes.
Because there's some real value in that as well. And now you're getting the flavonoids, you're getting
everything,
everything in the plant, and you're not really decarbing it. And so the only way it's going to decarb is in your body's temperature, which is a slow release method. But that's another
conversation. We need Kevin Jodry because he did that in California for a long time. The straight juicing. That's when he brought the plant out of Spain and first introduced the CBD plant to North America, and they were doing the juicing, and that was the main reason that plant was brought over from Spain. So Av, reach out to Kevin and let's get him on to talk about the juicing end of it.
And I'll beg him too, Ken. So we'll tag team him. Have your mics off.
Yeah, no, I was just saying the same thing. We'll tag team him, corner him.
Yeah. Because he's hard one. He's so busy, man. But anyway, so we're at
so many areas, eh?
Say again?
I said so many areas.
Yes, so many areas.
Research, yeah, there's so many.
So we're almost at hour 140. So Ken, should we dive into questions at this point?
If you'd like to, we've got 7 questions. So now Rossi was asking, do you want activated or deactivated oil? So that's more for you, Darrell, on how you were doing your tinctures, because you were saying some of it was activated or not activated.
All my tinctures are activated at to give you the medicinal results of that tincture. They're not activated, like specifically my THC is not activated at the point where you're going to get the psychoactive results you would like from eating it or smoking it. You're not going to get high from it. That's the activation level I look for. The non-activated is what we were just talking about, the THCA or the acid forms, all the cannabinoids. I don't make tinctures right now with the acid form, but I could if it was needed or asked for by a client, for sure. I do a lot of custom tinctures. Yeah, and that's basically the difference. It's just activated to deliver the medicinal properties of that cannabinoid as an activated component, along with the terpenes that are with it. Now, if you notice terpenes, if you look at a terpene chart, they do activate at different temperatures. So I just kind of picked kind of the sweet spot in where you're not burning off all your terpenes and you're activating most of them. Yeah, there's definitely a bit of work involved. It took about 3 years for me to figure out my actual process that needed to be done, for sure.
Wow, that's why you're patenting it. Oh, sorry, Leighton, go ahead.
I was going to say, if you could do that in 3 years, you're rocking it, brother. Good work.
I was a good test subject on myself. I didn't have nobody to tell me no, right? So
been there, done that.
So Hillbilly was basically, it's more of a statement than a question, but he says, I have a strains that I don't really enjoy vaping that much. The terps aren't tasty, but I noticed they have great medicinal effects. Sometimes medicine's going to taste bad. And then, of course, everybody got into the Buckley's, phenomenon.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Yeah. And it's all in terpenes. I mean, it depends. I have some strains that have a little bit of a bitter back end to them a little bit. And it depends on the strains, but I also taste all the other terpenes in there also. So they're very different from one to the other strains. So, and you got to think about how many hundreds of terpenes that we have out there now, or that we know about, in the different flavors that come from them. I mean, even one terpene in itself can taste like 3 different things. The beta caryophyllene, you got pepper and cayenne and something else that it can taste like or something. So it's really hard to discern which terpenes pushing the flavor, and then you add them together, and who knows if they're creating different flavors. I'm sure they are. Right? So yeah, it's just because it tastes bad doesn't mean it's not working. And again, Buckley's he's been around for years, so.
And then you put multiple different flavors in, and that changes yet again. So
exactly, yeah, that's when you can start moving. But I also have had strains where I've smoked, and you're right, I didn't like really the flavor of the smoking it. But when I made a tincture out of it, I actually got a really nice flavored tincture out of it. So it can surprise you like that. Some of the tinctures might not show up until you actually activate them to a certain stage, and then they'll come forward a little bit more.
Okay. Have you got anything to add to that?
No, I've always got more questions, so let's just go through the audience questions and then.
Okay, DM was asking any thoughts on supplementing UVB on an indoor grow? Yeah.
And I have thought about it, obviously, I've been approached by LED light companies that have the UVA and the UVB in them and programmed and all that. It's more about a money thing now. I've already, bought my lights or whichever, and got my setup going, and until I need to upgrade or set it up there, I'll definitely probably be putting some UVB in, but it will be in another LED fixture, and I'll be looking for one which does have the morning wake up and the night night downtime or whatever you want to call it, spectrums or timing for it. So, but that just wasn't available when I brought my lights. So,
Leighton, Av, you got anything to add to that?
Yeah, far red and far blue, baby. Don't forget them.
Yes, yeah, and actually those are already in the LEDs that I have there. Is the red and the blues.
And natural sun, you can't go wrong.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Actually, Darrell, there's blue and reds, but then there are far blue and far reds. They're even even a different spectrum. These full spectrum lights with the wake ups and the shutdowns probably will be available reasonably priced, as things progress. But, so don't buy too early.
Yeah, these ones weren't very cheap when I bought them either. I hear you.
Well, if you make the grow up in Edmonton, I'm sure that they've got a whole bunch of different lighting companies coming there, and you can see all the latest technology.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. There's so much technology coming out. That would be nice to see what they're coming up with.
Yeah,
makes our job that much easier, right?
Exactly. So our next question is, what was the name of that living mix that you are using for your soil? No, not True Living Organics. The soil mix.
Frankia.
Okay, so it is the Frankia living soil.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Guy's son. Yeah.
Yeah, his name's Andres Dean.
Yeah, great soil. It works excellent. Before I found his soil, then I was doing the barrel mixing for doing the 30 days and all that, and I just run out of dirt too fast, so I had to do something. So.
Yeah, I was using 55-gallon drums, and I set up 3 of them, and I was rotating all the time.
All the time. Yeah, you need to have some time for sure.
Yeah. So, Silly Lily wanted to know, with the True Living Organic, there is a mycelium at the very beginning that you do put in when you first plant your plants to try to get that interconnection. Now, do you use mycelium?
I don't think I do.
No,
just seed right into the dirt, Frankie. Unless Frankie puts it in his dirt. Yeah.
And
I don't inoculate it with anything.
Silly, you should break away from using the word mycelium, and you should use saprophytic or mycorrhizae, because people are not getting that there are 2 different ones. Mycelium can contain mycorrhizae and saprophytes. Mycelium can be just saprophytes. So therefore, you really need to get into the weeds a little bit about. I should say we should up our game as a species, or at least here on this channel, when we're using these terminologies, so that the audience really understands that they're vastly different organisms, even though they're both in the fungal kingdom.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't add anything. If whatever's in Frankie's dirt to begin with, that's what they get. And right from the seed, it's just tap water, nothing fancy. Yeah.
And Silly says, "Yes, sir."
And just to be geeky about it, so Andres Frankia is a species name for, I believe, like a rhizobia type species that works with alders. Is that? I'm going to Leighton on this one, but isn't Frankia a species of rhizobacteria that kind of works like a rhizobium? But I thought it was in alders. Maybe I'm off on that one, but maybe Ken will Wikipedia that or something. But his name is Andres. His product's name Frankia, I think, in honor of some type of bacteria or fungi.
So definitely check that out, Ken, because that's something I cannot answer. But I'm very familiar with all of the nitrifying bacteria, the nitrobacters, the azobacters.
And I thought this one was particular to alders, but I could be off. Yeah.
Okay, I'm getting bikinis coming up. Okay.
Hopefully, he still's in the other room. You looking at porn like that?
Yeah, I think we'll have to wait for another show for that one. Silly Lily actually had another question. Is there certain foods that can strengthen the endocannabinoid system?
Yeah, there's
Yes.
actually lots of foods. Yeah, lots of foods that can. And the healthy diet, just stay with a healthy diet that's going to help your endocannabinoid system. Not quite as powerful as the cannabis, obviously, or we'd all be fairly healthy still. But and I wish I could tell you which ones to look at. But yeah, just maintain a healthy diet. Eat eat lots of vegetables. Because there's actually lots of vegetables, lots of different vegetables. Same with your terpenes; they're in all different vegetables. That's your flavors, flavors and smells of most of your plants and veggies and stuff is your terpenes. So definitely, but cannabinoids, all of us need to supplement in that way just to get our endocannabinoids back into balance, back into check to begin with. It's because we've been denied it so long.
So that was actually kind of a trick question because, what strengthens the endocannabinoid system? Darrell's correct. Quality food, healthy food, because that stimulates your entire body.
Mm-hmm.
But is there endocannabinoid or cannabinoids in other foods? No. You would have to take hemp and feed it to your chicken and then eat your chicken and the eggs. That's how to get the cannabinoids back into your body. So it is my understanding that we, as all or the vast majority of life on this planet, evolved with the cannabis plant as part of our diet. And I'm not saying hemp or I'm not saying THC. I'm saying cannabis plant because they're the same fucking thing. But that's the problem that people don't understand is that, well, how do I build my endocannabinoid health? You have to consume cannabinoids so that you're giving your body's own system the ability to regulate on a better and faster and more effective methodology.
Exactly.
And Av, I found it, brother. So there you go. Nitrogen fixing bacteria symbiosis with actinohyzal plants. So if that helps.
Well done, Av.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe it doesn't have anything to do with alders, but yeah, no, interesting.
Initiates the forming of root nodes.
And the
cool.
And there are a few other plants out there, like for example, dark chocolate does have cannabinoids in it, right? So you can get that in cocoa. You can get a little bit, I think they say with echinacea, so coneflower.
Yeah, it seems they're finding more and more. I keep reading studies that they found some in this and that and whatever. I haven't really dove into that a whole lot, but
yeah, nothing compares to cannabis in terms of how many phytocannabinoids are in that cannabis plant. So,
well, that's right. And if all the other ones were so helpful, we wouldn't be in the predicament we are now, as far as I'm concerned.
Now, I'm not sure what Natalie means, but fatty acids. Did I miss something?
They're good for your building up your health of your immune system and therefore your endocannabinoid system. So anything like prebiotics, probiotics, fatty acids, all part of a healthy diet, which is, as Leighton was saying, is just going to bring around positive health too. So.
And those fatty acids are wonderful delivery methodologies. So long-chain fatty acids will hold and what we want to call slow down the loss or metabolism of those beneficial things till your body's receptors are open to take them. What he uses glycol, or we use coconut oil.
Same idea.
Grapeseed oil. All of those are long-chain fatty acids, which will deliver those compounds to the sites where you need to get them to.
Yeah, allow it to stay there in that floating area or no man's land until they're called upon. Right? They're amazing molecules. They're an on-demand system, and when they're not needed, they're just poof, they're gone again back into into the nothing of the system, but they need to stay there, so they're still available, right? And that helps them stay there. Yeah.
Av?
No, just bang on. I think that's one of the most important things to remember and remind ourselves of the endocannabinoid system, that it is an on-demand system, right? So
real time on demand. It's just you feed it, it's gonna work, right? You feed it the proper things, it's gonna work. That's all there is to it, as far as I'm concerned, anyways. They seem to complicate things pretty good out in the big world there. So.
Okay, well, that's all I have for questions, guys, unless somebody throws something in, or Av, of course, he's always got questions.
Always wanting to get that last word in. No, Darrell, I really appreciate this conversation. And to me, what I'm taking is, as the most important information, is that with the medicine that you're providing, nobody has to be intoxicated.
Right? No, not at all.
And that's, a lot of my students are consumers of cannabis, and they all believe that they do need a little bit of intoxication. And so the last question I was wondering is, have you worked with patients who have post-traumatic stress, high anxiety, depression, and do they also take your medicine, not get intoxicated, but address their symptoms?
Yes. Oh yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I deal with high anxiety quite too. I have quite a few clients actually that are in high anxiety situation, and that another epilepsy lady over by Vancouver, and she's high anxiety, and she's on she's on the CBD and CBC regime, same regime as I am. But anxiety, now THC is a funny thing. It can take your anxiety away, and it can give you anxiety at too high of a level, and that's where the consumer needs to. Once it fixes that anxiety problem, because it does actually have the potential to fix the problem, then you're going to start getting anxiety again. You're going to have to back down from it. And everybody is at the potential of that. It depends where the state of their CB1 receptors are in their body and what they're actually dealing with. But if you're a healthy person, normal person, and you start jumping on a high THC regime, maybe just because you got a little bit of pain every once in a while, it's going to be very easy for you to take too much. You're going to get anxiety from it. You're going to have to back down on that. So it's knowing how to read your body, as well as what the cannabinoid does on both ends of it. Too much and not enough, but kind of thing else as well.
So here's a little tip for the audience, and that is, if you're dealing with post-traumatic stress disorder, any kind of trauma, the best thing in the world is mushrooms. So when I first met Pauline, she was on all kinds of antidepressants, anti-anxieties. Man, that girl was a fucking roller coaster ride. Within 1 minute, she could be off the deep end or soaring high. And so, I'm like, Pauline, this is not healthy for you. It's not healthy for us as in a relationship. You need to start microdosing mushrooms and until we can back you off completely all of this shit. So within 6 months, she was completely off all that stuff, leveled way out. And in many ways, that kind of got her prepared for her battle that she had to struggle with within less than a year from getting off all that shit. So, and that was all part of her, her becoming more of a medicine woman, for lack of better words, because she was a healer. She was licensed or registered in 17 different modalities, everything from Ayurvedic medicine, which a lot of you people probably don't even know about, which is the use of terpenes through oils that get into your body, kind of like a salve.
Yep.
It's ancient wisdom. But anyways, just to answer the question, I've blessed with people in my life that do make or grow mushrooms similar to Darrell. They make tinctures, and a friend of mine who was in Fallujah lost his best friend to a sniper in front of him, was suffering tremendous PSTD, and I hooked him up with a bottle of the Smurf juice, and he microdosed it, found his threshold, and then backed off so that he could use it during the day. It wouldn't affect his work. And he's had tremendous success in dealing with it. So I have plenty of examples. So if you're dealing with those types of issues, yes, endocannabinoid health will be a really big benefit to you, but you should look toward the fungi on the healing. And I'm a healer too. I mean, I was in a really bad place when she died. It's the only thing that brought me out of that fucking dark pit.
No, I fully agree, Leighton, for sure. It's another tool in the tool bag.
Yes, exactly. You don't want to use a hammer when you need a wrench.
Exactly.
Yeah. So Eric makes a good point here, and I'm not sure if I like this point because I'm a coffee aholic, but coffee suppresses the endocannabinoid chemicals that smoking marijuana boosts. Is that true?
I've never read it, but it's possible for sure.
Well, then let me ask you this. Why do the vast majority of cannabis consumers consume a fuck ton of coffee, right?
I know, because I do too, yeah. And, I haven't really paid attention if I smoke anymore. I just, I never really thought about it that way. I think I smoke, but I don't smoke or drink coffee.
I think we're going to say Derek or Eric. We're going to say down on that one, man. I'm sorry.
Eric, bring back some more information for next Monday, all right? Do us all a favor.
Totally. Awesome.
Okay, guys. Well, we're at the 2-hour mark. So if there's no more questions, do we cut her here, guys?
Yeah, sounds good. I got to get Poe out for a walk. Like I said, I literally rolled in, sat down, and jumped on this. So this poor boy needs to.
Thanks a lot, Darrell.
Hey, I appreciate you guys having me. Thank you very much.
Yeah, so check out Cannabis Tinctures on Facebook. So
yeah, on Facebook. I'll get my site, zerohigh.ca. I'll have it up as soon as possible. You can contact me on Facebook Messenger, whichever, direct contact me. I'd love to speak with anybody that needs any help. Even just education, doesn't matter. I'm here for help.
Well, thank you for all you do, Darrell. Really, really appreciate it. It's an honor to have you on the show. And finding more people like you out there.
I agree. Yeah, we need to work together to solve this problem. It's not just going to be one of us.
Yep. Agreed. Av, as always, thank you, my friend, for all your hard work behind the scenes. And Ken, don't know what to say. I couldn't do it without you, brother. None of this would be present. So thank you.
Super.
Well, thank you guys. I couldn't be doing it myself, that's for sure. And that's why I asked Av to be your co-host, because I know quite a bit of stuff, but nothing like you guys do. Okay. But I've got the Dynamic Labs up there as well, guys. So anybody that wants to check that out, to maybe reach out and get one of those tests to see where you are with your endocannabinoid system.
Yeah, they're going to be available on my site also. Yeah, it'll be one of the first things up there. Yeah.
Okay, guys. Well, with that, thank you everybody for coming, and we will see you next Monday. I know I have a couple more shows this week with The Passion Within, one with a gentleman that grows using fish water, and then a gentleman out on the island, Mr. Apinga, who is the head grower for BC Cannabis Incorporated, a native farm out on the island. So anybody who wants to check those out, keep those in mind. They're coming up Tuesday and Thursday. Okay, guys. Peace out, everybody. We love you all.
Thanks for watching.
Great day.